This is Sir Migs Morales. So now we are in the chapter 7 of research process analytic phase. So let's read first our student objectives. So to critique the appropriateness of statistics used of summarized descriptive data, select appropriate statistical techniques to summarize and present descriptive data. Third is to compare inferential statistics to other types of quantitative analysis to summarize the steps that make up an overall approach on to qualitative analysis. So that's our learning objectives for this chapter. Let's proceed. So what is analytic phase? Analytic phase is data gathered in the empirical phase is analyzed, interpreted in this phase. So after data collection, so you'll now do your tabulation and let's do our statistical treatment in a qualitative and interpretation and analysis of narratives in the qualitative. So quantitative information is analyzed through statistical analysis. So there's two types of statistical analysis. First is descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. Later we'll discuss what's the difference between the two. So in quantitative research, we will do our statistical treatment for our data. So descriptive statistics are in terms given to analysis of data that helps describe how or summarize data in a meaningful way, such that, for example, patterns which might emerge from the data, allows simpler interpretation of data, and to show the parameters, such as, for me, live experiences of cancer patients. It's a phenomenology study. However, I use descriptive statistics for us to show how many female or male respondents do I have. So we have also um, age bracket. What are the age group? What are its percentage? And even the demographics of my informants. So it describe, it show, and it summarize the data. So commonly used descriptive statistical tool first is frequency distribution. It's the simplest form. It's an organized tabulation of data, graphically representation of the numbers of individual in each category on the scale of measurement, some of which are the percentage or proportion of a part of a whole, or ranking, increasing or decreasing magnitude of the variable. So for us to interpret it more um, deeply, or for us to explore your research, you can use this frequency distributions, such as the percentage. How many of our respondents are on this age group? And based on this age group, you can get your literature review for you to be for you to analyze why these are their responses. So based on ranking, you will see how the the items in your questionnaire being ranked for you to know what are the top 10 points in the questionnaire and the bottom 10. So for us to interpret it, for us to improve it, for our we can improve it through policy, and you can also improve it through changing our practice. Percentage is very important for us also to correlate it to our results, right? Such as how many percentage of individuals answered satisfactory, how many individual answered excellent in our care. So, but why are there in such cases that there's a high percentage of poor or fair quality care. So on that note, we can see it in a pie graph or in a histogram that there's a low percentage on a specific variable or a specific component on the questionnaire. So measure of central tendency. First, we're done in the frequency distribution. Now, the measures of central tendency. Central tendency makes general statement of a certain common trait or characteristics. So an estimate of a typical value. So there's three measures of central tendency. So we have the mean or the average, we have the median or the middle, and the mode. Okay? So mean is the average to which find it and add up all the numbers and divide it by the total number of scores. So the median is the middle value. In the list of numbers to find, your number have to be listed in the numerical order. And the mode is the occurs most often. So mean is the average. You get the total, you add all of the numbers and you divide it by the total numbers. Then the median is the middle value. But make sure that you arrange your number in a chronological order. Then the mode is the occurs most often. So these are our example. So we have 13 plus 18 plus 13 plus 14 plus 13 plus 16 plus 21 plus 13. So we have 9 numbers. So total of that divided by 9 equals 15. So that's the mean scores. Then the median is, first you should sort the number, then get the middle. Okay? So we have 1, 2, 5, 7, 8, 10. But it is a even number. So we'll add 5 and 7 divided by 2. So your median is 6. Okay? If it's odd number, 1, 2, 5, 7, 8, the middle is 5. And the mode, so you will see there's a lot of 13. So the mode is 13. Commonly used descriptive statistical tools. So weighted mean is the overall average of response of the study subjects. It's used when we consider some data values to be more important than other values. So we want them to contribute more to the final average. So the weighted mean is the summation of FW over N. So there's descriptive statistics. Now is inferential statistics. What is inferential statistics? The goal of which is to draw conclusion from a sample and generalize them to the population. It's more on the prediction relationship. So that's inferential statistics. It allows the researcher to make assumptions, predictions about a wider group using smaller portion of the group as guideline. So the commonly used inferential statistics is first is the Pearson R. Pearson R is the measure of strength of linear association between two variables and is denoted by the rho or the R value. A value of 0 is no association between the two variables. A value greater than 0 indicates a positive association, and a value of less than 0 indicates a negative association. As you can see in our presentation, there's a positive correlation and negative correlation, or there's no correlation. The data spreads only in the x and y axis, and the negative correlation, as you can see, it is a downward trend, and the positive correlation is the upward trend. So based on some of our researches, it is more on the relationship Okay, it's more on the prediction. So, such as if you do hand hygiene, the increase in hand hygiene compliance, there will be increase or decreasing in what? Decreasing in hospital acquired pressure injury or hospital acquired infection, rather. So, the greater or some other researches, so the level of education affects what? The readiness of pregnancy. Okay? So, the higher the level of knowledge, the higher the level of readiness. Okay? So that's person R, or measure of strength. Other is the t-test. T-test is tells how significant is the differences. Significant differences between groups. In other words, it's let you know if those differences could be happened by chance. So, if you want to know uh, the effectiveness of an online learning, so we'll do your experimental research, and you will have pre-test and post-test. So your pre-test and post-test will have the average of pre-test and the average of post-test, and we'll do the t-test for us to know if there's significant differences from pre-test to post-test, or it's only by chance that it's affected. Your intervention is affected by other external factors. But here, in doing external experimental research, you will use t-test for us to know if it's significant. Okay? So, chi-square. Chi-square tests a null hypothesis about the relationship between two variables. So, in testing a hypothesis, you will use chi-square. First is help develop marketing strategy for different geographical location. Other is, these are the titles. Help test homogeneity or independence between categorical variables, handles two or more groups of variables, so use various fields. A non-parametric test used for categorical data doesn't require mean or variance. Easy to compute and carried out in softwares. In the medicine field, chi-square helped identify the performance of drug with control groups. So chi-square is for us to know the relationship of also two variables in a non-parametric way. So we have ANOVA, or analysis of variance, a statistical method used to test differences between two or more means. So as you can see, there's the bell curve, different bell curve. The analysis of variance, every bell curve has means the variables. So uh, the analysis of variance, uh, it caters two or more variables for them to check the correlation and significance if there's relationship or differences between each variable. So for my study, the perception of nurse manager in patient safety culture and safety culture maturity in tertiary hospital in Metro Manila, I used, in the quantitative part of my research, I used ANOVA for us to determine if the demographic profile such as age, gender, educational attainment, length of service affects the safety practice or the patient safety culture, and also as well as the safety culture maturity level. So I use ANOVA for me to understand what are the components or demographic profile that could affect the the patient safety culture and also the safety culture maturity level of an organization. So this ANOVA, analysis of variance, is a variability ratio. So yeah. So after understanding how we analyze quantitative research. Now, let's proceed to our qualitative research. How will we interpret, how will we analyze narratives, photos, excerpts, records? First, let's do our transcribing. Transcribing is a painstaking verb. Uh, you should listen to the interviews and manually transcribe it through hand or through our computer. So we should transcribe every word, listen intently, and use your field notes. Sir, what is the field notes? I have already mentioned you on the last chapters that in the triangulation, as researcher triangulation, we have interviewer, we have observer, and we have the transcriber. So use the observer's notes for you to see the nonverbal communication on that specific excerpts or narration of our informants or our respondents. After transcribing the qualitative data, we develop categorization of schemes. So after that narration, you will read, and read a lot for you to categorize it per sub-themes. Okay? So if it's live experiences of cancer patients, is it a feeling? So take note of it. Is it change of physical? Is change of emotion? Change of social? Change of family? So develop a categorization scheme. After developing a categorization scheme, okay, so this is public, internal only, confidential, and restricted. So data will be freely disclosed to the public. Internal data cannot meant for public disclosure. Confidential, sensitive data that is comprised could negatively or compromised negatively affect the operation. Restricted, highly sensitive data that is compromised could put the organization in financial or legal risk. So please be mindful on doing your transcribing and also developing a categorization scheme. Why? Because qualitative research is also bounded by the data privacy law. So anything that can demean, anything that is unethical, anything that is not acceptable by law could be uh, used against us or against our respondents. So be sensitive on doing your categorization and transcribing. After developing categorization scheme, next is coding qualitative data. Doing codes after categorization scheme, doing codes could possibly um, cluster. You can cluster it as a chunk of themes. No? Coding qualitative. E1 is emotion. E2, emotion. Okay? E1, pain. E2, fear. Okay? So, use coding qualitative data. And after codes, then review again. Read again, read and review your codes, review your categorization. So after which, interpretation of results is the process of making sense of the numerical data that has been collected and analyzed and presented. May be present in various forms like bar graphs, line charts, and tabular forms and other familiar forms. So after creating a analysis, statistical analysis, and interpretation of narratives, the themes, and categorization. So you should now analyze it. You should analyze your statistical um, assessment or results, and back it up with our review of related literature and articles, and incorporate it, relate it to your current study. Present in various forms. So use different bar graphs, line charts, and even histograms for you to present it more clearly to your audience and even in your manuscript. Five aspects of interpretation of data. First is credibility. So, is your result has meaning? Is your result important? Is your result has implication? And it, is your result can generalize your claim? First is meaning. So, based on the pie chart, based on the histogram, what's the meaning of that? Is it significant to the current practice of nursing, or is it significant to the current profession? Is it important to share it? Is your result implies innovation, or is your result implies changing practice? So please check all of this. Methods of presenting data. First is textual. Most frequent used and best for small sets of data. Example, you'll narrate it. Of the 150 sample interviewed, the following complaints were noted: 27, blah blah blah, 25. So you enumerate the complaints, or you enumerate the sub-themes. Tabular. Tabular is you place the different components or variables in a table for us to visually appreciate it and analyze it more, and it's more accessible, and the comparison could be more in-depth. So as you can see in this situation, so we have the region, we have population, and we have percentage. So based on this interpretation, the highest distribution per population is 15% from region 4, followed by NCR. This is last 2000, year 2000. Graphical presentation. Graphical presentation is very useful if you want to show interaction, relationship with the other variables. For you to show the percentage, such as this, the pie graph. For you to show the level of responses using the bar graph or histogram. The chart or the frequency table for you to show if what are the highest or lowest scores. Line graph is for us to show the trends and patterns, okay, and others. So not after the statistical treatment, it's not the end of your interpretation or analysis. You should use the proper graphical representation of the result, because it will be the vehicle or instrument for the participant to understand, for the reader to understand more your study, such as if there's relationship. So, or is it your research is cross-sectional research or longitudinal research? Maybe you will use a line graph because it predicts pattern. So in 2001, 2002, 2003, there's increasing what? Increasing mortality rate. So why? So on that moment, our reader will what? Will be curious. Wow, what happened on that here? So that's the power of data presentation. Okay, so and that's the end of our chapter 7, the analytic phase. So let's do our learning check. We critique the appropriateness of statistics used to summarize descriptive data. We have selected appropriate statistical techniques to summarize and present descriptive data. And we compare inferential statistics to other types of quantitative analysis. And last, we summarize the steps that make up an overall approach to qualitative analysis. So now, let's proceed to chapter 8, the research process dissemination phase. I've already told you on the first chapters in our nursing research that the totality and for us to close the loop of nursing research, you should disseminate it and you should apply it in nursing practice, education, and nursing profession. So dissemination is the last phase of research. It's to prepare research reports, abstract, proposal in order to communicate findings to the appropriate audience and for us to utilize it as well. Formal research reports, we have 4 major sections. We have introduction. In introduction, later we'll discuss what should be included in the introduction. We have the methodology or the research design. We have the results and discussion. And last is conclusion and recommendation. So this is the 4 major sections of research reports. So the research abstract is the synopsis or the summary of the completed proposed study or proposed study. We have 2 forms. We have traditional or the single graph summarizing the main features, and the modern is slightly longer, more informative, more structured. It includes objectives, methods, results, conclusion, and the keywords. So now, more journals and articles are using the modern technique of doing an abstract. So it's an IMART format. Introduction, methods, results, and discussion. So we have characteristics of modern abstract. In the modern abstract, we have it should be brief, 100 to 300 words. It should be precise. Avoid unnecessary and lengthy description. Straight to the point. What is your research problem? What's your objective? What's the results? What's your methodology used? The population, the sampling, the ethics, ethical principles being applied, and last is your conclusion and recommendation. It should be well crafted, interest and positive impression. On your first sentence, it should be attention grabber, and also your conclusion should have that power. Okay, you have that power and call to action. And last, it's complete. It should have the vital components should be present. The research proposal is intended to convince others that you have a worthwhile research project and that you have the competence and work plan to complete it. Writing is coherent, clear, and compelling. So, after this course, you will have your pre-orals. So that's a research proposal. It should be coherent, it should be clear, and should be compelling to our panelists. So we have preliminary parts. We have the title page. We have the college, the name of college or university, the degree, this is the title page, degree conferred, degree's name, and date of submission. This is the title page. Then we have the approval sheet. As you can see, contains a statement of acceptance of the paper signed by the advisor and the panelist. So it should be passed or failed. So the grade is pass or fail. So we have acknowledgement page. Recognize all the individuals who helped, assisted, and encouraged the writer or the researcher. We have the abstract. Concise single paragraph summary of completed work or work in progress. We have table of contents, an overview of the content and organization of the research. So, and also the list of tables and figures. So our paper should be in the APA format or the American Psychological Association format. This form of writing is used mainly in the social sciences like psychology, anthropology, sociology, as well as education and other fields. The format, we have chapter 1. What includes in the chapter 1 are the introduction, the problem, and the review of related literature. There should be introduction, the rationale, the independent variables, the setting of the study, some review of related literature. In your related literature, you should show the existing knowledge, the existing researches about your study, and also the gaps of that study, of your study. Then we have theoretical framework and conceptual framework. Statement of the problem. So it's the main objective, and we have the specific objectives. Your hypothesis. So again, it's a review that your hypothesis should also always be a null hypothesis at the start. Significance of the study. So in a general manner, the significance of the study affects the nursing education, the nursing practice, no? Nursing research, the community, the patient. Okay. Then we have scope and limitation. So other forms is scope and delimitation. So the scope, what's the criteria of selecting your respondents? What's the limitation of your study? Okay. And definition of terms. So we have operational definition. Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is the research design. So is it quantitative descriptive correlational? Is it qualitative phenomenological or qualitative descriptive pheno? Participants, no? Give us the overview. Who will be your participants? So here you can include the inclusion and exclusion criteria. The instrument, is the instrument a standardized instrument, adopted instrument from a international authority, or a self-made questionnaire? And if you will use a self-made questionnaire, please discuss how did you validate, and is this self-made questionnaire is reliable. So did you check the Cronbach's alpha test? And the pilot test should be discussed in the chapter 2. So procedures, how will you conduct the study? From title, okay, title, creating a title or proposing a title, approval of our dean, approval of your advisors, and doing an ethics review, or submitting your paper in an ethics review for technical and ethics review. Then we have letter to the dean or the chief nurses or medical director of the institution for approval, and distribution of our survey tools, and getting back our survey and tabulation of data. And next is data analysis. What will you use? What statistical method will you use? And or the thematic analysis will you use? What qualitative analysis will you choose? And chapter 3 is the results and discussion. Results and discussion entails, it shows the tables and your analysis with support of literature. Okay? Then discussion, we have chapter 4 is summary, conclusion, recommendation. Based on the results and discussion, what's your realization and what's your recommendation for us to improve the identified problems in your research, or the results of research, your results of your research could create some recommendations and conclusions. So guidelines in citing references. So we have citing single author. We have APA in APA style. We have Walker with close and open parentheses the year. Okay. So we can use Walker 2000 or open Walker comma 2000 close parentheses. So for secondary source citation, so such as this, transition to university program was designed to teach transferable skills. Ford et al. 2015 as cited by Pretorius and Ford 2016. So reference will be included in the reference list. So the Pretorius and Ford 2016 will be on your bibliography. So citing two authors. So citing two authors with the same last name, used first initial by the last names. So B. Kachru 2005, Y. Kachru 2008. So when a work has two authors, cite both names in every references. Bausu and Jones 2007. So we have citing multiple works by the same author. So as you can see, APA Association. So all of the years, comma, Jean et al. 2007. So we have citing a group. If group author is easily identified by abbreviation, you may abbreviate the name in the second and subsequent citation. So Ministry of Education, comma, 2001, and another citation on other pages, MOE, comma, 2001. So for unknown authors, so you will use the cite the first word of the title followed by the year of publication. So put the titles of articles and chapters in quotation marks, italize titles of books and reports. So according to Indiana Jones Federal Accountability System 2008. So Indiana will be Indiana, comma, 2008. So citing multiple authors, we have King Sangao, Learu, Hoshu, and Joseph. So it will be King Sangao et al. 1998. So citing 7 or more authors. So we have Skinner et al. 1993. So direct quotation. So Milgram 2001 notes. So we have open and close quotation. Okay. Then the page. So the references should be arranged alphabetically. There's no grouping of sources. Each source must appear in the reference list. Lines after first line of entry should be indented 1/2 inch from the left margin. For multiple works of author, Order by publication date, oldest to latest. So these are our example. Presenting the paper. So first, there should neatness is very important. How your paper looks may influence the way it will be judged. So follow the format and check it, edit it, recheck it, reevaluate it, and check it again. Next is use visuals. Can make your paper more livelier and interesting. But wait, use appropriate visuals. It should be in line with your paper. It should be in consonance with the result of your paper and even the purpose and objective of your paper. Presenting in public using a note cards. A few words about the main ideas. No, don't bring the whole manuscript. Don't bring the whole paper. It will distract not only the speaker, but it will distract your audience as well. Speaking slowly and loudly in a way that your audience can easily hear and understand. Speak slowly and loudly. Okay? So, but the challenge here in a virtual setup, we can do some adjustments. So, in the virtual world, use be mindful of your virtual presence, such as this small rectangular um, frame. Okay, so you should have a background, plain background, white or whatever, and should be well lighted. Check your audio, it's working, and use the screen as presenter's view for you to see your notes. Okay, your códigos. Then practice it. Okay, practice it. Look at the camera for eye contact. Use your gestures for you to express and for us to feel that you are communicating with us. Using PowerPoint, more interesting because it can help to improve the audience focus, helps presenter be more improvisational and interactive. So PowerPoint could be our friend, however, it's also can be our enemy because you should practice your presentation well. When will you change it? When you go to other page? And please time your presentation. Maybe you have good presentation. However, if it's exceeded the time, it will be worthless because you will not finish your report. And the more important um, results and discussions are in the latter part of your presentation. Okay? Practice your time, your presentation, and your presence. Putting evidence into practice. Developing recommendation regarding how the evidence could be incorporated in the nursing practice. That's the chunk of your recommendation. What is the implication? What are the changes would you propose based on the result and discussion of your research? Okay, so to that, have See you on your pre-oral defense. And at this moment, congratulations and looking forward for the full-blown research on the second semester. Thank you.